What's going on, everybody? Good afternoon. Hope you're having a good Sunday, and I hope the Seahawks are as well, because it looks like they're getting a day off today after Football Fest. Not going to be doing very much at the VMAC, not a lot going on, so don't expect very much to report in terms of on-field happenings later today or even tomorrow. And they'll be the team will be back at it tomorrow, and I'll say what needs to be said after that practice, of course. But going to be slow for a little bit here because they deserve a day off, right? They had Football Fest yesterday. They played a semi-simulated sort of game. I still don't really know how it differed from previous Football Fests, but it feels like it was a little bit different. But they played in front of a not packed house, but they played in front of fans. They played in a real football stadium, so they deserve the day off. So with not a lot going on there to talk about, I want to talk about Connor Williams a little bit here. And obviously, since his visit, we really haven't heard that much, but I do want to talk about the little bit that we have heard. And I also want to talk about whether or not it seems like a realistic possibility, because when you have a guy like Connor Williams in for a free agent visit, you would typically expect him to get signed very quickly after that visit or not get signed at all. The fact that he visited over a week ago and we haven't heard anything other than the fact that there's still interest is discouraging. This tweet from Brady Henderson yesterday morning talks about it a little bit. The Seahawks remain interested in Connor Williams, but nothing is imminent. He's gotten the sense, and this is just his perception, this is not anything official necessarily, he's gotten the sense that money is the issue, not health. Williams wants more money than Seattle can pay him. And I wanted to explore that a little bit, just kind of examine it under a little bit of a microscope here, and see if we can say anything particularly illuminating, maybe find some silver lining positivity here. But there is certainly a reason why Williams might want more than Seattle can pay him, because Seattle cannot pay him that much. So jump over to OTC here, Over the Cap, which I think is the best contract site now because I don't like Spotrack's new update. And you take a look at the salary cap situation for the Seahawks. Just taking a look at the top 51 players right now, and that's the number that we really care about, plus a little bit extra, because obviously once the season starts, we're not going to have 51 players on the active roster, we're going to have 53. So we're going to have to take that into account here as we're making calculations here, but let's try to estimate this. So as of right now, the Seattle Seahawks, according to Over the Cap, have just barely over $10 million in cap space. Just barely over $10 million in cap space. And that is every player in the top 51 here. You can see the list here. The 51 cutoff is right here. Now, a couple of guys who are below the 51 cutoff obviously going to make it. McIntosh will make it. Bobo will make it. Stoll will make it because he's our only long snapper. And then there are going to be one or two guys up here above the top 51 cutoff that won't make it. Like, for instance, I don't think that Philip Walker, I guess is his actual name, will make it because he'll be a practice squad guy or he will just go on another team. Derek Young could go one way or the other. Stone Forsythe could go one way or the other. So it's not perfect, but it's very close, because when you get down to this level of pay, everybody is kind of in the same boat, right? Like, some guys up here are making $1 million, some guys down here are making 900,000. The differences are super thin. But it's a pretty good way to estimate things. So we know we're not going to have 51 players. We're going to have 53. So let's just say we add an extra $2 million for those guys. And that might be a little bit of an overshot, but it's good to overshoot here. And then if you have a little bit of extra money sitting around after everything is over, then, you know, that's obviously great. You're better off. So you take a look at that. That gets you down to about $8 million. And if you assume $3 million for a practice squad and $3 million for injury buffer, that means the Seattle Seahawks have about $2 million to play with, just over $2 million. Maybe you could round it up to like 2.1 or 2.2 if you really wanted to squeeze it out. And of course, you can always say we're not going to have as much of an injury buffer this year, and we're just going to go into the season and hope we stay healthy. You could squeeze that out to maybe 5.1, 5.2 million. Now, given the way Connor Williams has played football the last 4 years, really, him only getting $5 million in 2024 would certainly be below his expectations, and certainly something that he would probably look at and go, I deserve more than this. I'm going to see if somebody else can offer me more. So there are things that you can do. We've talked about them before. You could do a full restructure of Geno Smith. You could maybe extend DK Metcalf. You could extend Geno still, by the way. You could maybe do some further restructuring on a guy like a Noah Fant. You could do a light restructure on a guy like a Jaron Reed, maybe. It would probably have to come with an extension. But there isn't a ton of flexibility left on this roster anymore, if we're being honest. Like, for the most part, we are looking at a relatively set salary cap situation. You can see how small these base salaries are. Once you get past Geno and once you get past DK, a lot of the base salaries are pretty low to the floor here. You could maybe restructure Lockett, but we already have. I don't think we want to do that again. Draymond's already basically right at the bottom. Leonard Williams, he's at the bottom. Nwosu, same deal. So there isn't a lot left you can do to create extra cap space. Now, what you could do is offer Connor Williams a multi-year deal that is backloaded, so that way the first-year cap, it only has to be, maybe you could get it to like $4 million. But that would be kind of risky too. This is a player who is coming off a major injury. Maybe you don't want to give him multi-year money. Maybe you don't want to give him a bunch of guaranteed money. So you can kind of see how things get into a pinch quickly here. And if you go over to this page right here that estimates the cap space for every team in the NFL, you can see that the Seahawks are right near the bottom of the list. They are almost in the bottom 5 for most cap space remaining at this point in time. Now, the good news for us is that you take a look at these teams that are ahead of us. Basically, most teams in the NFL are ahead of us in cap space. A lot of them aren't going to be looking for a center, but some of them are. Like, for instance, if you look at the top of this list and see which teams have the most money right now, the Lions are up at the top, right? The Lions don't want Connor Williams. They have a Frank Ragnow. PFF has him listed as the second best center in football. So they're very happy with Frank Ragnow. I don't think there's any consideration on their part of signing Connor Williams to replace him. That wouldn't make a lot of sense. And there are going to be other teams that have similar really good centers that they like and don't want to move off of, even if they have money. Even if Connor Williams is a little bit better, it might not be worth the continuity change. You have a team like the Patriots. They have a lot of money too, but they were really bad last year and are probably going to be really bad again this year. Does Connor Williams want to jump on a really bad team, even if it means a little more money? Does Connor Williams really want to go to a team that is going to win like 5 games at most this year? Like the Patriots? Like some of these other teams down here that we just know they're not going to be very good? Probably not. And why would those teams want to go get a guy like a Connor Williams when he's not going to make them a much better team and make them some really good team single-handedly? Connor Williams on the Patriots makes them a little bit better, but they're still a bad team. And then you have a team like maybe the Commanders. They have a ton of money too, but they signed Tyler Biadasz in free agency. So they already have a center. So you can pretty quickly reduce the list of teams that would consider looking at Connor Williams, but there are still going to be some. Like, consider a team like the 49ers. They have the most cap space in the league right now, over $50 million. They can easily afford it. You go to this PFF list, and I'm not saying PFF is the end-all be-all, but they rank Jake Brendel outside the top 20. They think he's a below-average center. Now, the Niners don't necessarily need great offensive line play. They've proven that. They don't need more than what they have because their offensive system allows them to perform without having elite offensive line play. But theoretically, Connor Williams would be a significant improvement over Jake Brendel, and he would, on some level, make that team better. Now, they did give Brendel a contract extension just a couple years ago. Maybe they feel kind of stuck to him, but that's certainly something that, if given the opportunity to, I imagine they would at least consider, right? And you've got some other teams here that might consider to do similar things as well. Like the Eagles just lost Kelsey, right? And they're replacing him with, I think, Cam Jurgens, who is okay. But if you're the Eagles and you're going for it and you're trying to win a Super Bowl right now, and you see Connor Williams out there and you can afford him, you have the money for it, and you feel like he's an upgrade, wouldn't you do that? Or even a team like the Packers. Now, the Packers don't have a ton of money. They're sitting on about $22 million in cap space. But you go to this list here, PFF, for whatever it is, thinks very poorly of their current starting center, Josh Myers. They have him listed in the bottom 6. What about a team like the Houston Texans? They don't have a ton of money, but they have more than us, over $20 million. They're currently starting, apparently, Juice Scruggs at center. PFF doesn't like him either. I remember scouting him in the draft, not being terribly impressed. And the Texans were a playoff team last year. What if they decide, look, we got this short window with rookie contract CJ Stroud. We're trying to win the Super Bowl this year. Let's go get an upgraded center. These are all teams that could easily outbid the Seahawks if they really wanted to, and there's not a lot we can really do about that at this point. Now, for whatever it's worth, when I search the internet for teams rumored or teams believed to maybe be in conversations with Connor Williams and might actually go get Connor Williams, and there seems to be some degree of, at the very least, intrigue and mutual interest, the only two teams I've seen anything on would be the Bears and the Buccaneers. And those two teams have barely more money than the Seahawks, barely significant. The Bears 12.2, Bucks 10.4. The Seahawks basically have about the same amount of cap space. Now, the Bears I don't really get because they're a team that is a year away, although I do think there is some logic to the idea of adding a good center when you have a rookie quarterback, and that's a team that could surprise people because they do have a lot of talent offensively, but the Bucks are interesting. Granted, they did just draft Graham Barton, and they probably need to let it ride a little bit with him, but let's say they're in training camp right now, and I don't know if this is true or not. Graham Barton, maybe he doesn't look good. Maybe he doesn't look ready. Maybe he looks like he should be playing a guard position instead. I don't know what it could be. He did play left tackle in college, right? So maybe they look at Graham Barton and they're like, hey, we don't like this. And you're also thinking, this team, this Buccaneers team won a playoff game last year. This Buccaneers team just gave significant money to Baker Mayfield at quarterback. And this team also just gave significant money to Mike Evans. They're kind of trying to win some games now. They're trying to make something good happen this season. So if they see Connor Williams as a significant upgrade, yeah, that would make a decent amount of sense. That would maybe play. But again, they don't really have more money than the Seahawks, so it would be a bidding war that caps out very quickly. The good news is that Connor Williams is not in a position to just go retire because he has so much money and has played so much, he doesn't really care that much. Oh, he wants to play. He hasn't made that much money in the NFL yet. He definitely wants another contract, and in order to earn that contract, he's going to have to actually go play. And in order to play, he's got to sign. So it's not like he can just say, meet my demands, or I'm just going to retire. That's not realistic. But again, I mean, you take a look at this, you look at all these teams that have more money than us, you can definitely find some teams that would be able to outbid the Seahawks by a wide margin for Connor Williams' services. So at this point, it's hard for me to believe, if Brady Henderson is correct that money is the issue, that we end up with him. By the way, don't forget, Connor Williams has played left guard before in his career, and he's played it very well. He played left guard in Dallas. So everything I just said could easily be tossed out the window if some of these teams that I already mentioned feel like they need a left guard, like a team like the Commanders. What if they go, hey, we have Tyler Biotish at center, but we want Connor Williams to play left guard, and we can outbid most other teams for him. Same for a team like maybe the Dolphins. Again, this is all hypothetical, by the way. I'm just speaking hypothetically. The point is, there might be an additional demand for him because of his flexibility. All right, that's how I see things right now. It doesn't look great in my estimation. If we end up with Connor Williams, it'll be obviously a big, big change to the way I perceive this 2024 Seahawks team. But at the same time, at this point, if we end up with him, I'm going to wonder, why didn't anybody outbid us when there are so many teams that clearly could, and this guy is so clearly a really good player? That would kind of throw me for a loop. But that's what I got. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think.